Hello and welcome to episode 23 of Touchline Talk with Odds Changer. As usual, I'm joined by the one and only football writer and broadcaster Dean Jones to discuss all the latest news and gossip from the world of football. Hiya, Dean. It's getting close to the end of the season now, and the transfer rumours are beginning to swirl around. And there's only one name that's dominating the headlines in the last few days, and that is Harry Kane. Will he or won't he? Will he be a Spurs player next season, or will he move on? That's the big question surrounding the England striker right now. What's your take on the latest regarding Harry Kane's future?
Well, it's threatening to be the new Jadon Sancho saga, isn't it? Like starting this early, and you can just easily see this still being spoken about on transfer deadline day. I think it's going to be very hard for him to leave. That's my main take. I think that it's much more likely that he's still at Tottenham next season than he's playing for Man City or Man United or whatever else. I can understand and I can believe that he's starting to get frustrated, but I just don't see who's going to be able to buy him in the next transfer window. I think there's been talk of £150 million is his valuation, but that hasn't come from Tottenham. Like Tottenham have never said he's actually for sale at £150 million, and actually their stance is he's not for sale, and we've never said that 150 million is what we would be looking for if he is. So that to me says that could be more than 150 million pound, and the chances are he's not available anyway. So I don't think it's very likely that Harry Kane leaves, but I do think that it's something we're going to be speaking about for about the next 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, obviously Kane sort of fueled a bit of that speculation himself by not ruling out a move away from Tottenham this summer. He says he will decide his future after the Euros. If he were to go to the Euros with England, be top scorer, helping him win that tournament, his price tag's going to go up even further, Dean. And who has the money to buy Kane right now?
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? I kind of feel like probably, last summer was the first time I think we'd really seen an opportunity for Kane to leave, and that the threat was already there from before the end of the season, and it didn't happen. And I feel like that might have been a better time for him to have gone. I feel like there's going to be so few clubs right now that can afford him. I understand, the PSG links, because that is an obvious place, like especially if Mbappe goes. I don't see that Kane's going to come into a front line with Mbappe and Neymar. But I can see that link seems feasible. But yeah, it just seems to me like Kane might have missed the chance to move, to be honest. Like, he's been so loyal to Tottenham up to now. There's been links and rumours before. And I think of all the times that it was possible that someone could have paid the money that it would take to get Kane, now's probably not that time.
Yeah, it's sort of similar to what happened to Steven Gerrard at Liverpool, I think, probably all those years ago. He remained loyal to Liverpool. He had offers from other clubs, but he never moved in the end. And again, we're looking at Harry Kane. He turns 28 this summer. Does his value sort of go down a bit? He's getting older now, or is this the peak of his career? And with the whole pandemic and the financial situations of clubs, the market's a bit smaller for him, I think. You're looking at the clubs who possibly could sign Kane. You're looking at Manchester United, Manchester City in the Premier League, and then you're looking at the Spanish giants of Barcelona and Real Madrid, and as you mentioned, PSG. But there's no real door open for those clubs right now, unless Mbappe was to leave, or if somebody else was to leave Real Madrid, like a Benzema or something like that. But yeah, it's a difficult one for Kane now, I think. He might have missed the boat, like you mentioned.
Yeah, there's just no signs of Man United having that money. Like, they haven't got over 150 million to spend on one player from everything we've been told. Man City are obviously playing down whether they could afford Haaland, and I think that Kane's going to come into a very similar bracket to that. But they do really like him, so maybe they can try and find a way. Maybe they, sell Raheem Sterling and buy Harry Kane. That's the kind of thing I think it might take to make that feasible. And the Spanish clubs, Benzema, people talk about him leaving and needing a new Benzema every season, and he just seems to score more goals the next season. So it doesn't seem to be that much of a concern to me there. And Barcelona obviously seem pretty skint from what I can tell. So there's not that many avenues for him to explore right now. So we'll have to see at the end of the season, because basically if he does want to leave, he's going to have to force it, put in a transfer request, and push himself into a new club. It doesn't really seem in his nature to do that, but that's what it's going to take.
Yeah, I think he's going to have to push for this move to happen. And we all know Daniel Levy doesn't mess about. He's a very tough negotiator. There's a few reports suggesting that he wants to stay in the Premier League, Dean, if he was to leave Tottenham this summer. So that only probably leaves the door open for Manchester United, Man City. For me, looking at as a neutral. He looks a perfect fit for Man United if they could afford a deal. But again, it's not going to be easy dealing with Spurs and Daniel Levy.
Yeah, I mean, the reason he wants to stay in the Premier League is because he wants that goal-scoring record. He wants it off Alan Shearer. So that's where that comes from. And I think it's much more likely if he did leave that he stays in England. He's got 3 young kids. He's got a wife who, you know, is very close with their family and stuff. And all their roots are right here. And I would be very surprised, especially on the back of a pandemic, if they were to up and leave England.
Yeah, it's going to be a big story. That's a developing story every day, every week. So it's going to go right on during this transfer window as well to see what does happen with Harry Kane. But sticking with Tottenham, Dean, it's been a pivotal few weeks for the club and especially JOSÉ Mourinho as well. Obviously, a disappointing defeat to Manchester United last time out, with all the fallout from that, with Solskjaer and Mourinho having words as well. 2 seasons in a row, if they don't qualify for the Champions League, it's going to raise major question marks over Mourinho and even Daniel Levy, I suppose, in some context, because Tottenham, if they don't qualify for the Champions League, they're not going to have money to spend in the transfer market probably that the other clubs might have. So big few weeks coming up for Spurs. And what do you think might happen if they don't finish in that top 4 and qualify for the Champions League?
I think we're in a position where Daniel Levy has to admit he got this wrong, like bringing Mourinho. I think that's where we're at. And I think from what I'm told, he's finding that very hard to concede that Mourinho is not going to be a success story at Tottenham. On paper, Levy's basically been playing fantasy football here, and he's got his dream together. Like he's got Mourinho as the manager. He's got Harry Kane as his captain. He's got Dele Alli, a player that he's always loved and has helped bring through to the England stage. And he's got Gareth Bale back. Like, that's almost everything Daniel Levy ever wanted, and he's got them in a new stadium. The only thing he hasn't got is the fans there to see it all. But it's falling apart. Yeah, I think it was probably a good thing for sure, because I don't think right now he'd have much choice but to get rid of Mourinho if the fans were in there. I don't see that Mourinho will still be there next season. I don't think it's possible, particularly if he wants to keep those players at the club and others, to be honest, because they're all becoming so tired and worn by Mourinho's style of management that you come to a point where, well, what's going to be more crucial to the next stage of this club's development? Is it going to be having Mourinho as manager, or is it having Harry Kane and Dele Alli and these people as part of the side under the next manager? Surely you side with the players there, surely.
Would think so, but yeah, it's going to be a massive few weeks for Spurs coming up to the end of the season as well. Obviously, they've got the Carabao Cup final to look forward to against Manchester City later this month. Do you think if they won that might keep Mourinho in his job, or it has to be Champions League or bust?
I don't think so personally. Yeah, I mean, I know that Tottenham have craved a trophy, and like if Mourinho does get sacked and he's won the Carabao Cup, then he'll say, "I was brought in to win a trophy. I've done it. This is what I'm here for." He'll throw that straight back at everybody, so he'll be desperate to win that cup. I don't think it's enough. Like, do Tottenham fans really dream of winning the Carabao Cup? Is that bigger than being in a Champions League final? I don't think it is it? Like, I don't think it is. So I still think that they're regressing. And also, I don't see that they're going to win that cup final anyway, personally. But yeah, if they do, then it gives Mourinho something to hold on to for the rest of his life and always point to. But I don't think, as a Tottenham fan, it leaves you in a real dilemma, that cup final, because there's definitely much more chance if he wins that and stays. But you don't really want him to stay. So do you want to lose the cup final?
Yeah, not a good position to be in. You
Not
want your
really.
team to be successful, but yeah, Spurs fans, I think, a big section of them now are fed up with Mourinho's style of play. Everything else, they're probably thinking of a new manager. Again, any more new names in the frame for that? The latest one I saw was Nuno Espirito Santo from Wolves, which is a bit of a strange link considering they both have the same agent.
No, I haven't heard that one, actually. I haven't heard that one. I still think Nagelsmann is top choice if they're forced to change. And I also think one of the reasons that Levy's not rushing into a change during the season is because there's no chance that Nagelsmann comes until the end of the season. He's not going to leave Leipzig right now. So I wonder if that's part of Levy's thinking here. He knows he's got a bit of time on his side and a cup final coming up, and the man he wants isn't available. So that's still the one to look out for. Brendan Rodgers, there are still doubts about whether him and Daniel Levy could work together, whether Rodgers wants too much control when it comes to transfers, and whether that could work.
Yeah.
So that's something that would potentially hold that back, even though I think Brendan Rodgers would be a really good fit for that squad and could take that team forward. Roberto Martinez, I think, could be one to look out for after the Euros if it was to come after that. And I think, people like Rafa Benitez will probably get thrown into the mix as well if Mourinho leaves, but I don't really see that happening.
There's going to be a long list of names ready for that Tottenham job if they do decide to axe Jose Mourinho this summer. Here's a question for you, Dean. Put you in Daniel Levy's shoes right now. Would you sell Harry Kane, use the money to reinvest in the squad to strengthen it everywhere? And maybe would you trust Mourinho with that money to rebuild the squad?
Absolutely not. No, absolutely not. No, you definitely take Kane over Mourinho. Everything about Mourinho now just is like a poison, I think, going through this club. And you see what's happened to them. Like, the one thing that Mourinho has been really good at as a coach is defending leads and parking the bus. You can't even do that anymore. Harry Kane is good at scoring goals and assisting goals, and he's doing it more and more regularly. There's only one winner there for me, it's Harry Kane.
I think most Spurs fans would agree with you on that one as well. But like we said about Kane's future, it's going to be crucial between now and the end of the season to see what direction Spurs do go in and what they decide to do during the close season, whether to change the manager and maybe reinvest in the squad, but keeping Harry Kane's probably going to be key to that as well. Another striker who's being linked with a move this summer is Celtic forward Odsonne Edouard, the young French striker who's done well up in Scotland. He's won a lot of admirers in the Premier League, Dean. Leicester have held a long-term interest in him. Obviously, Brendan Rodgers signed him when he was at Celtic, so he's a big admirer of him. And also Arsenal like the look of Edouard as well, with potential striking replacements needed at the Emirates with Alexander Lacazette, Eddie Nketiah, both possibly on the move this summer. What's your latest take on this Edouard one? He's going to move this summer for sure from Celtic, I think, with his contract just having a year to run, and Celtic need to really cash in on him.
They do need to cash in. Yeah, I'm not sure how much they'll get. Probably not as much as they originally thought they would have, a year ago. I also believe that they have a sell-on clause, which means that PSG are due quite a bit of the whatever sum they get, maybe even up to like half of it, to be honest. So that's tricky. I think that Leicester are the front runners. I think they're the most interested team. Edouard, he's been touted around literally everywhere. And a lot of people have been put off by stuff that they've seen from his past in terms of his personality and his behaviour. I don't think that his character fits a lot of clubs. I mean, I don't know him personally, so I'm not going to get too involved in slating him. But from what I've heard, there are some doubts about how he would fit into clubs, and there are a few clubs just not willing to take the risk on him because of stuff they've heard. But in terms of, what he offers on a football pitch, it would work really well at Leicester. And if you could get him at £15 million, it seems like a bargain. Leicester are looking to evolve beyond Jamie Vardy now. Iheanacho's definitely, offered them a glimmer of hope there in terms of having an option. But I think they're going to have to find a new way of playing. And I think that Edouard is somebody, as you say, Brendan Rodgers knows. And that's very helpful, I think, for Edouard at this stage. He'll want a manager that already understands him and knows what he's capable of. And, whatever hearsay there is out there about why people might not sign him, Brendan Rodgers has already seen enough to make up his own mind, hasn't he? So I think that that's probably what's most crucial here when it comes to the transfer. And that's why I think that Leicester seems to be the top landing spot for him.
Yeah, I'd say the Foxes are in pole position to land Edouard, especially if they were to qualify for the Champions League next season. That will give them extra revenue to buy players and lure Edouard down to England as well. But like you said, I think he almost moved last summer, but Celtic refused to let him go as they went in search of that 10 in a row. But we all know what's happened there. So the player will be on the move. I know he held talks with Leicester and Arsenal last summer, but again, Celtic refused to let him go. Another team that's been mentioned with him, Dean, is West Ham. And we all know they are in the market for a striker after selling Sebastian Haller. Again, they might be a good fit if they're finishing the top four in the Champions League.
Yeah, that is true. And they are one of the teams definitely that have been sounded out about Edouard. But we all know how many strikers that West Ham look at every single year. They definitely need one. Because Antonio, you see right now, he's injured. And look, Jarrod Bowen's doing well, stepping in for him, I don't know if you could rely on Jarrod Bowen and Michail Antonio as your two options again for an entire season. So almost certain that West Ham will strengthen in that area. It doesn't seem to me that he's a priority for them from what I've heard. But yeah, he's an option that they've been offered.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much certain that we'll see Odsonne Edouard in the Premier League next season, most likely at Leicester. There is interest from elsewhere across Europe, but I think the Frenchman's got his eyes on the Premier League as well. So Celtic will do their best to try and have a bit of an auction for him if they can and try and get that price tag up, when probably last year they might have got 30 to 40 million for him. They're probably looking between 12 to 15. So bit of a drop for Celtic, but yeah, I think the Premier League will come calling for Edouard this summer. One team that's heading out of the Premier League this season is Sheffield United, and still continuing their search for a new manager, Dean, after Chris Wilder's departure last month. It's been a real disappointing season for Sheffield United after their heroics last year in their debut season back in the top flight. A few interesting names being chucked around right now, Dean, about who might replace Wilder. We've obviously got this Belgian Jan van Winkel, who's advising the Blades owner, Prince Abdullah. And obviously he's looking at the Belgian market right now. And the name who's the current favourite is the Austin manager, Alexander Blessing. I'll be honest, I don't know much about Blessing myself, but I think he's done well with Oostende this season. They're in 5th place in the Belgian league. He's a young, hungry coach and deals well with young players, and I think works within a tight budget. So that might suit Sheffield United. Who do you think Sheffield United need to go for to find the right man to get them back in the Premier League next season?
Yeah, I think Blessing is genuinely the front runner at this stage. From what I'm hearing, like you say, the vision and the way that he works with young players has been something that's been really impressive. I mean, just to give people an idea of what he's done at Oostende, last season they finished 15th in the league. You know, they were poor. I mean, I think there's 16 teams in the league, so that that's how bad they were. And this season, they're 5th, and they're knocking on the door of a European spot there. So that's the turnaround that he's managed to implement. He's definitely managed to get the best out of some young players. Even a Celtic player, Jack Hendry, has gone there on loan, and he's been really good. To the extent that I think they'll try and sign him if they can. And so I think Sheffield United have been made aware of him, like you say. And it might be a time to just look at someone, outside of the obvious candidates that everybody always talks about. Chris Wilder, nobody would ever have thought could get Sheffield United to where he did. So, it's not that you need a big name or a proven name necessarily in England to do the job that you want. And I certainly think that this is a path that Sheffield United are exploring right now, and seeing whether he's interested, and if so, what his vision will be with Sheffield United. Yeah,
probably one of the only concerns for Sheffield United would be maybe getting a work permit for Blessing with this new post-Brexit rules. It's all now the same for managers as it is for players from Europe. So getting a work permit for Blessing could be an issue for Sheffield United.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it along those lines. But yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? The whole game has changed. I'm sure that people are looking into loopholes right now for various things in terms of signing players and managers from Europe. But yeah, that's certainly another hurdle to get over.
I'm sure the agents are definitely looking at those loopholes right now to try and get players and agents into England as soon as possible. But yeah, another few names that have been mentioned. Slavisa Jokanovic, from what I've been told, was their top target. He's obviously now available again. I think his contract's run out in the Middle East where he was coaching. And obviously he's got the pedigree, Dean, of winning promotion to the Premier League. He did it with Watford. He did it with Fulham as well. Would he be a good fit?
Jokanovic was great for Fulham. Obviously a Fulham fan, and was gutted when he left because of the style of football he had us playing. It was honestly superb. That would be a great route for them to go down, to be honest, if they found a way to do that. Jokanovic wouldn't be cheap, I'd say that much. That's probably one thing to look at. But yeah, I mean, he's somebody that I'll be amazed if he wasn't linked or didn't land a championship club going into next season. There's also one to look out for, though, Javier Pereira, who worked with Jokanovic. He's being linked with a few clubs at the moment. He was the assistant at Fulham. He's trying to make a name for himself as a boss as well. And I think that Javier Pereira is somebody to look out for, being touted with jobs, and potentially actually Sheffield United was one that I'd heard might be possible.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. The sexy name that's been linked with the job, Dean, is John Terry, who's obviously coaching at Aston Villa. I think he has got ambitions to become a manager in his own right as well. Something like Sheffield United would probably be the perfect platform for John Terry, and I'm sure the Prince Abdullah at Sheffield United would love to have somebody like John Terry, just his whole presence, and raise the exposure of Sheffield United if he was to give him the manager's job.
Yeah, look, John Terry will be delighted to hear you describe him as sexy, mate. So that's the start. I think as a glamour signing, yeah, that's certainly something to look at. Again, like, would John Terry be cheap? Probably not. And what it seems a risk, to be honest, because there's nothing there for you to cling on to if things start going badly. Like, there's no fallback plan of showing, well, he turned things around here, or, well, he's got this relationship with the fans that will see him through. Like, that's the risk when you go down that path. But obviously more and more teams are trying it. We've seen Frank Lampard and Wayne Rooney do it. Yeah, I mean, it's something that John Terry wants to do, isn't it? He wants to take that next step, go out on his own soon. But it'll be as much about John Terry being convinced of the project that he goes into than the other way around.
It'd definitely be a gamble by Sheffield United if they did turn to Terry, but I think, like you said, he's seen his other ex-England teammates do it. Lampard, Gerrard and Rooney have all moved into management, and it's certain that he's going to go down that path sooner rather than later as well. So yeah, talking of Sheffield United going out of the Premier League, a couple of teams who are on the verge of winning promotion back to the Premier League is Norwich right now, who are storming away with the Championship, and Watford in second place. And it's looking like a quick return for both of these sides after relegation last season. Dean, obviously Norwich, when they were in the Premier League last season, they didn't spend much in the transfer market, and that sort of came back to haunt them with immediate relegation back to the Championship. From what I'm hearing, they're going to give it a bit more of a go this season. Are you hearing similar?
Yeah, totally. But I think that the first thing they have to do is sort out the futures of their best players and the manager. That has to be what they do first of all. Daniel Farke, I think his contract ends in 2022. Obviously, he's done a brilliant job for them. And I think that a new contract for him will be a priority. And then you look at the star players and the fact that, Buendia, Cantwell, Max Aarons, they're all being linked with Premier League clubs. And they'll all be having their heads turned right now as well. So it's all about Norwich convincing those guys to stay with them. Norwich have been working really hard, particularly over the past year, to build a unity at the club, and to let the players know, though, that they're never going to hold them back from fulfilling their lifelong ambitions. And I know that players have been told, look, when the time is right for you to go and you want to go, we'll listen. And that's the situation that will be there. Certainly, I think for Buendia and Aarons, it's just a case of the right money coming in for them as well if they're going to leave. And, they would be huge losses, and that's something that Norwich have to wait on. And you don't want to lose those players late on in the window either, because you can't replace them effectively. So they are going to get money to strengthen, but it's going to be tricky if you're uncertain of their future. So maybe they try and get clarity on those situations first. And then you can be like, right, what's it actually going to take for us now to stay in this division next time around?
Yeah, they've obviously learned from the experiences when they're in the Premier League last time, so they'll be looking to give it a better go. I think they'd probably prefer to sell Max Aarons out of any of their other top stars. Maybe I think they can replace the young fullback. I know they're looking at a few players already in case the England under-21 international does leave this summer. Been talk of Everton and Manchester United for him as well. But I think for Daniel Farke, he's obviously done good business in the European transfer market before. So again, like I mentioned, the post-Brexit thing could maybe affect Norwich's and their transfer plans.
That's it, yeah. I mean, Timu Puku, when he came in, and people in the Premier League barely knew who he was, did they? And then he caught everybody out with an unbelievable run of form. At least he's still there, and he'll be there next season, I'm sure. But it's about finding those gems, isn't it? And when you're a club like Norwich, that's what you want to find. You don't want to go out and buy, the finished article, particularly. You want to find somebody who's got all the potential and has shown a lot of it, but isn't quite there yet. So they're not costing quite as much as they might do normally. So that's the job for them. I don't think that you're going to be looking at them signing obvious names. I think from what I've heard, loan signings is definitely something we'll see, but only a couple, because they don't want to upset the balance of the squad and be relying on people that aren't necessarily in it for the long term. But it's certainly something they're going to look into.
Yeah, and then what about Watford? They'll probably be a bit of an unknown quantity, but one thing for certain is we'll probably be talking next season, Dean, about a new manager in at Watford after a couple of games, because that's what they seemingly do. The more managers than players, it seems, the way they go through them at Vicarage Road as well. Obviously, the new guy, Isco, has come in, and he's done a good job, to be fair to him, in difficult circumstances. He's got them in the automatic promotion places. It looks like promotion is now within their hands. Obviously, keeping hold of Ismail Assar will be vital to Watford this summer. He was very close to moving last summer following relegation, and he's done well in the Championship, and I'm sure he's got a few admirers out there who might try and sign him in the summer.
Yeah, I mean, Ismail Assar was looked at by Man United as a kind of fallback plan for when Jadon Sancho wasn't going well. So we'll have to see whether they might look to revisit something like that. Assar's been brilliant again. Watched their game the other day and he was superb. I do think they'll hold on to him, I have to say. I don't know if that's the kind of player that's going to be bought in this next transfer window, because he is a lot of money. Like, he's not going to be cheap. And I don't see, unless Man United were to go for it as an alternative, which I haven't heard of them revisiting that, I don't really see where he's going to end up. The other kind of players you're hearing them Watford actually linked with now, there's Ashley Young. I mean, that'll be an emotional return to the club where it all started for him. He's obviously getting on now, but if you're signing a player from Inter Milan, then that's not too bad, is it? And I think a lot of Watford fans would love to go back into the Premier League, all back in the stadium, and Ashley Young's there. That would be a nice little story for everybody. But then there's a lot of
great experience as well, Dean.
He does, yeah, that's the thing. And Ashley Young, I don't think people would have expected him to do as well at Inter Milan as he has done. He's been really good. He hasn't played all the time, but when he has played, he's done well. And I think that he's definitely, if he decides to come back to England, I think that this is what he fancies. Obviously, Ashley Young will probably be a bit more expensive than most players currently on terms at Watford, but it's something that I think they'll be able to look into. And I don't think Ashley Young's going to be holding them to ransom, because this is a move that he wants for reasons beyond money, right? Like his whole family basically came up through Watford, and I think he'd just love to pay them back by coming back.
Yeah, it'd be a good way to end a successful career for Ashley Young, is if he was to win the Serie A title, come back to Watford and have a season or two. Maybe.
What a way to celebrate winning Serie A.
Exactly, coming back to Watford and then finishing his career in the Premier League, which is probably what he's always dreamt of playing with his first club again in that respect. But yeah, one player I'll be looking forward to seeing in the Prem with Watford will be João Pedro, the young Brazilian. He's done really well so far in his first season in English football. Been highly touted for a while now, so it'd be interesting to see him up against the Premier League's best defences.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's a few in there that are interesting stories at Watford, and there's also the factor of Troy Deeney and what happens with him. He's trying to get back fit and into the team by the end of the season. We'll have to wait to see whether he's able to do that. But Troy Deeney, I think, is out of contract as well, so they've got a decision to make there. I would imagine they'll keep him around the place, even if it's just a 1-year extension. But we always remember, the fun that Troy Deeney had in the Premier League playing against Arsenal, for example. Even if he just comes back and plays 2 games against Arsenal, it's worth it, isn't it? Exactly. So there's plenty of fun to be had in Watford about.
Exactly. He won't hold back, Troy Deeney, if he comes back in the Premier League. We all know he's got an opinion on most things. So yeah, Troy Deeney, such a big figure at Watford. He is Mr. Watford pretty much these days. He's got such a big influence in the dressing room, I think.
And deciding the next manager.
Exactly, he might have a role in that as well. Maybe player manager next season.
The way things have gone, you never know.
It's been a strange old year of football, but yeah, we're looking forward to probably seeing Norwich and Watford back in the Premier League next season. But yeah, getting back to things, that's us for this week. We'll be back next week to discuss all the latest comings and goings and getting ready for hopefully a busy transfer window.